So, our next presenter is Brenda Astara Gustin. Is a person who loves to expand further with others to explore how we think and feel. How apropos is that? Her ability to transcend ordinary viewpoints is complemented in relationships with people who enjoy extraordinary, ways of living and being. Brenda is a communicator and healing facilitator who delights in raising awareness to the wealth, spelled W-E-L-L, wealth, of wisdom and opportunity within our own very own bodies. As she translates and simplifies the voice of the soul, her Saxo talk is called Livin from the Inside Out. Please put your hands together and welcome Brenda Astara Gustin.
I'm going to go right over here a second. Am I being taped? My apologies. I love props. They're visual helpers to me that help me play with the concepts that are coming through. Wow, what a day. I just want to say what an amazing presentation from everybody here. Just keeping us going deeper and deeper into the wealth of our wisdom within. The cells in our body are living, conscious beings, and I feel we forget that, or we don't know it. There's many who don't realize that, and that's the new awakening of the consciousness within all of us. And so we, as the earth, we came here to do this work together. I call this work Wonderful Opportunities to Rekindle Kindness. And the reason I call that is because we are alchemical beings. We are made up of chemicals. So I utilize nature as a way to connect me and to receive messages. One of my teachers, Paramhansa Yogananda, introduced me to Luther Burbank. And in the autobiography of a yogi, he speaks of that. I didn't recall it until I then recalled it and found the chapter again in the autobiography where Luther Burbank actually then helped him name the East-West bookstores, which was, and also his magazine that he started, because Yogananda came to the United States not to Americanize or Indianize Americans, but to show the underlying connection between us. And he came to share the teachings of Jesus, and in a different way. And that isn't quite understood by all, yet when he entered my life, I felt that was my home. And so I'm going to go to a place where I wanted to begin today. It's called patience. Patience is the shortest path. To attune the heart to the rhythms of eternity, one must first adjust to life's longer rhythms. Allow the mind to become absorbed in concentration on the little ripples. Not allow the mind to become absorbed in concentration on the little ripples at the surface of the sea. Patience means adjusting to whatever is in life rather than wishing it were something else. It's a prerequisite for every type of success. For it is when we work with things as they are that we can change them to whatever we might like them to be. Such as what JG was saying, we must embrace who we are, love unconditionally before we can ever send that out to any other person. And first, I really feel it goes to the cells in the body, that we love ourselves. When Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself, there was this jump to love thy neighbor. But he said, as thyself. So be that human. And for me, it was this race to an ending. There is no such thing. There's no ending, there's no beginning, we are infinite. And so when we open to that infinite possibility and we recognize that that is who we are and it is where we come, and there's nowhere to go. I love the word there. You take off the T, it's here. There's nowhere to go. And there's the ever-present now. So what I call that is the natural occurring wonder. So I came to this planet, and as I came, I remembered, oh no, I'd forgotten. This is the place of suffering. And I backpedaled, and I went, oh, I don't think I'm going to do this. And so I stayed in the womb much longer. Nowadays, they make you come out. Back then, they didn't, and so my mom laid in wait. Till Christmas Eve, I did decide to arrive. And I feel that, and then I tried to leave. 6 weeks later, I tried to leave, and they cut me open. And I have this big scar to tell for it, so that they could come and untangle the cords that were wrapped around my stomach so that I didn't have to stay. That was an agreement with my mom. My mom was afraid to have a second child because my brother had had a lot of illness. So my agreement with her was to come in and transcend that. So it was good that they did the surgery. So when I was talking to RJ about putting this together, I do a lot of workshops and teaching and work with clients and many things. And so I'm just a teacher at heart. And I was like, how do I be clear that I'm sharing from my heart? And he said, and make it personal. And so often working with clients, it's not about me. And I don't know until the moment when I'm working with someone whether I'm actually to tell a story that involves me. So preparing for something that is about living from the inside out ahead of time was an oxymoron. And yet, it was a nice opportunity to kind of look even deeper inside and say, what is my life about? I spoke with Prim, and I spoke with a couple other friends, and they said the stories are important. And so putting it in the context, when I was listening to all the speakers today, I was realizing I really came here to play. I came to this planet to play. And when I remembered that it had this overarching density of seriousness, I didn't want to come, and I didn't want to stay. And then I stayed, and I started having fun, and I loved being in the wonder. And I was a kid that I am now remembering, because my dad and my brother seem to be reminding me lately, that I always ask questions. I'm always wondering, why do you ask so many questions? And you're so emotional. We don't want to go there. We don't want to talk about that. Well, I do. I love wandering in the wonder. And so that's what I like to do, because then I get to hear and see and feel a perspective from another, because I can't know that unless another speaks to me. I can't stand in the same shoes, the same body, nothing. I can't see, even if we stood side by side, there's no way I would see the same thing that any of you are seeing. So even a mirror image doesn't give it. Nothing is as unique as each individual here. So we individually are the fifth element. We are what is here to transcend into the new earth. And so this patience that I was speaking about, there's an affirmation that I want to share is, I am neither the ripples at the surface of the sea, nor yet the crashing waves. I am the vast ocean deeps, unaffected by mighty surface storms, untouched by any superficial change. Well, I'm not there yet. Are you? I go there, I feel that. And so that's a part of my healing journey, is that I found that I really required to get in and get in touch with my spiritual, my soul nature. And yoga came into my life and saved my life. So there was a time, I'll go back just a tiny bit, when I was 9, and I basically said, after all that wandering through the wonder, I then heard from everybody, that's not okay. We're not here to play. This is serious business. So I got busy doing what everybody else wanted to do. And I tried to fit in, and I tried to fit in and do all the things that from the outside world said, this is good. And I did that, and fortunately I followed some of my inner truths around, what was coming up, and did as best I could. And I did reconnect with my husband, who I had met at when I was a little child. And we ended up getting married in the same church where we met. And so we kept crossing paths. I've had a lot of synchronicities throughout my life like that. And then when I was 28, I was pregnant, and our daughter was about to be born. My husband's father died suddenly from an accident, and I woke up big time again. And I didn't know at the time I was entering what's called the Saturn Returns, and I later found out about that. And about 6 months after my daughter was born, I couldn't get up off the floor one day. So I crawled over to the phone and made my phone call to the first chiropractor I had ever seen. So I did that, and about 9 years later, that was when I was having some challenges, and we had opened a school for children, a fabulous experience that we did for 18 years. Had a Sudbury school where we trusted the inner innate self, and went by to know thyself, and that was a fabulous experience. Yet it was a lot of challenge because people from the outside didn't understand. So you might be starting to see a pattern. There was this pattern of open up and then, oh, no. Open up, no. We don't do it that way here. So this struggle of getting from the inside to the out with all this pressure saying, no, that's not okay. And it's like poking at that light that wants to open and shine. So the soul energy of tuning in, that was when Jesus brought me to Paramhansa Yogananda at a stoplight. Said, look this way. And so I saw this symbol of Ananda, and I went, wonder what that is. And I walked in, and one day I said to myself, I think that I'll go in there in the next couple weeks. So I did, and I walk in and I see all this Indian stuff, and I'm like, wow, I don't know what this is. And then this tall man walks from down the hallway, and he says, hello. I said, do you certify yoga instructors? Because I knew at that point I wanted to become one. And he says, by golly, we sure do. So that way I entered into being involved in the life of Yogananda, and later on was introduced to the work of Sri Yukteswar, his guru. And that was a pretty powerful experience. Talk about a person who most people think is very serious. I'll show you a picture of him. Most people see this picture and they think, whoa, and he kind of glares at you. Yet when he started working with me, I was sitting down and I was asking, as I typically do, what is it that I'm going to share in a workshop that I was doing? And I was going to be talking about the chakras and doing a 7-week workshop. And I was guided to pull out this book. I went, whoa, that's interesting. Most people don't understand this book. And I was kind of like sitting there in the living room, and I don't know if you remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind when he was building that mountain, and I was just drawing, and all these drawings were just running through, and all this stuff revealed itself. And so what a beautiful scribe I was able to become, and then to be able to share these deep teachings. And so I'll kind of go into why I put these props up here is the chakras, which you see all these symbols, which I understand now, yet at the time I didn't. And most people don't really care, or they don't know yet. I'm very involved in sacred geometry. It really sings to me, and because of our studies of painting and working with Vina in a group throughout the years, and now doing some work that I had the pleasure of doing with Richard and Prim, the art of yoga, we're exploring this not only in the body, yet also on paper and playing with these symbols. And so what I will reveal in a moment has a little bit to do with this photograph here. This is a photograph that is of a crystal, and the crystal's this big. And so I was up at Angelica's place, and I was tuning into the energy of the oneness healing. And in my room was this little tiny crystal, and I started focusing in deeper and deeper to the crystal, and it revealed itself, this little tiny heart inside. And as I got even closer, it softened, and so it brought open that little heart. And then later on, I was reminded that I had helped to open a photography studio. I had totally forgot, and so they invited me to do put it on canvas. And so Joan Marie helped me with that and laid this out. And then she asked if I had any poetry, and I said, I don't know. And then as I'm cleaning out off the flash drive to give her the information that she needed for the photograph, voila, there's this little piece of poetry that had come through. So this is the synchronicity, the multiplicity that we all are. We are these crystals. We are this energy, and when we open ourselves up to receive, it just comes shining right through. But the blocks that get in the way, I feel, have a lot to do with our thinking and the mindsets that we get taught, these certain things. No, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. Well, why? Well, because why? Yeah. And so, these symbols, of course, are somewhat confusing to people. But if you take this off, which is why I did this, I decided, that I would connect them with the elements and some of the elements that have introduced themselves in my life. And when we think of ourselves as the elements and we live that way, in touch with our nature, then we get to play with that healing purpose within in a very natural and soothing way. And when we do it in a natural and soothing way, those elements work with each other. So most of the time, people go through the chakras and they walk through them and they say first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. There was something in me that said, that's kind of the hard road. How do you take that sediment, that rock, and lift it up? And so Yogananda kept showing me, you don't. You send it down, and you just keep filling your body with that divinity, because it's already there, but you're reminding the body. And then you breathe in and you breathe out into the cells of the body till you get so aligned in that very center with the divinity within that then as you exhale, then out again, it just radiates out. So that's one way to do it. The other way is knowing about Luther Burbank's work. I went to choose a lotus flower up at Lotus Lake, up at the Expanding Light. I've been invited to do so because it had gotten so full. And I knew that they have a really, really strong root. So I took my knife and my little bucket, and I thought, I'll go and I'll get myself a lotus flower. So I go down and I get in the water and I lean down and I pull and I find the one I want and I cut it and it breaks. And I went, oh my gosh. And I stood there and I said, oh, why did you do that? That was not the approach. So I stood there and I said, show me. So I put my hands down in, and they have tendrils up at the top, and I started kind of pulling the tendrils gently away, going deeper and deeper. And then as I got down to the root, it just gave itself to me. So I was asking, how do we do that as people? Because one of the teachers that I didn't mention is I studied Hermetic science and esoteric philosophy. When I had a major car accident, I went through a 4-year period of healing from within, and thank goodness for my husband, my mom, and my dad. They helped me to heal from the inside out, to go to cause, and 4 years it took, and I used my body as a laboratory. And during that time, I met Carol because I was working at East West Books, and my boss, Stephen, introduced me to Carol, who happened to be speaking that day. And so as there's a healthy mapping that we do that is the work of Carl Jung, and yet you have to know a little bit more about how the brain operates to do it. So I wanted to find one that was more universal. So what I did was I asked, with the lotus, help with the lotus, how would one heal from the inside out working with the chakras? And what I was told is you go to the third eye, the sun and the moon. This is the sun, this is the moon. You tune in and you breathe in and you receive the light of the sun. It enlightens the moon energy. You breathe in and you exhale it down. And when you do that, you send it down to your second chakra so that you clear the human emotions of whatever baggage they're kind of holding. And when you do that, that opens the hips. So that was the explanation of why you sit yogic posture, why we need to open the hips, why we need to get into the womb. No matter whether you're man or woman, it's to drop down into there, into that humanness, and be one with that. That then opens the heart. And so you open the heart. The heart then gives us oxygen, right? The lungs are there, you breathe. And as you do that, that exhales into the belly, which is the fire. And so it purifies any of that stuff, that mental stuff that goes in there and starts to cloud the spirited energy that is wanting to come out from that brain, that mindset that says, no, you can't do that. So the fire in the belly, it's talked about in the ancient teachings. And so then from there, it comes up into the voice, and then we can voice what is true, what is clear. And as that sound comes through, then it anchors and opens that root chakra. So the root then allows the crown to open. Because there's no way that we can really expand if we're tight down here and we're expecting it all to just come into this tight little ball. Because when you turn it all around, depending on which way you're going, are you going up or are you going down? We all are in a process of ascending and stepping down all the time because we are the earth energy. So being that we are the heart of nature, when we look at the teachings that are out there that show that the planets are within us, we are the constellation. Well, the root chakra is Saturn in this galaxy. The second is Jupiter. The third is Mars. The heart is Venus. The throat is Mercury. And the sun and the moon are right here. Where's Earth? So I asked that question. And Earth is right in between. So I think it was John Gray that wrote the book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's that blending of the two as we come into the divinity of who we are that we open up the new earth. So each one of us is that earth. We are the eyes, the I am presence. So I'm going to allow myself a nice deep breath. So that's called the oxytocin breath. So I'm doing those a lot these days because another thing that I had asked to come into my life, because I suffered from multiple deaths in 2013. And I was kind of back in that little, oh, I feel really good in the bliss here, but man, that middle ground is tough. And life is really good out here, but again, that middle ground is tough, full of the emotions. So I asked for assistance. And Dawn and I were traveling in Washington, and I received an invitation from Dr. Ellie Drake to become a female visionary author. So two of the things that I had asked for was, where could all these writings that had come through me, they were sitting, are still sitting in journals, go out on a platform? I would like assistance with that. So that was the invitation. The other thing I wanted is I wanted dance back into my life. And so Judy Guadalupe, Kellyanne Conway, and myself, we went down and we enjoyed the introduction of what's called Daibo, which is dance your butts off. It's not the butts you sit on, it's the butts you live in. And so it's a fun, quick way to clear those cords that you are speaking of, to unleash ourselves, to come into that Merkaba of the new earth, to be free. And so she, as a visionary, had this come in. The reason she'd had it come in because she was in Palestine and she had seen the Israelis and Palestinian women have a lot of butts. I want peace, but. I want peace, but. And she said, man, these women have a lot of butts. So that was where Daibo name came from. So it answered my prayers to be able to have that community. So you might see in the other room that I have this big banner up, and it has what is the harmony circle. So you see the sacred geometry there. When I saw that sacred geometry on a banner down at the conference, I went, aha, that's why I'm being called here. I didn't exactly know why. There were the reasons for myself, and yet there was the global reasons. And so the harmony circle, the reason I placed it at the crown chakra is because it is the makeup, the genesis of all form. When we come together and we create community like we're doing here. And so it's so many forms all in one. And when we do that as human beings, and we come together like that, and heart to heart, and we look at each other, and we see soul to soul, and we allow ourselves to receive what another has to give, and we really open ourselves with the parasympathetic system. So this is the physiology that we work with. So I've been able to go from the soul energy of working in the yogic traditions to then working through the mind with the work that I did of the Hermetic science and esoteric philosophies and maps of consciousness, and then to move into the physiology. So there are maps of consciousness, and those relate to the chakras. And each of us is a master of an energy that is present in one of these. And to relate to what is also referred to as Jacob's ladder, we have the first chakra is awakening. The second is self-remembering. The third is awareness. The fourth is transition. The fifth is transformation. The sixth is transmutation. And the seventh is transcendence. So depending on whether you're going up or down, that pattern is always present. So that saved me because I was then able to start to notice the patterns of why things would happen to me, why I would do certain things, because my energy is of a certain energy, and it just always is, because that was how I was created. And each of us are uniquely designed, and I call it the divine design, and it's this. And it's that alchemical soup that each one of us has through the cells of our body, because that consciousness is speaking to us all the time. The challenge is we typically listen when it's yelling at us. We listen when we're in pain. And so I said, why is it that people do that? Why do we do that? And they said, because powerful action initiating now. That is how we listen. And yet, many of us here, we're done with that. We're listening to that still small voice inside. We're listening to that love within us and responding to that. And so the call to action now is, how can we come forth with love? Okay. So, to be complete, the picture that I have down here is basically just showing that each of us has a unique handprint. And it's unique to every one of us, and it's very important. And the reason that I have the flowers is because of the fact that some people want to blend in, and some don't want to stick out and be the only one, and some don't necessarily want to be the biggest. Yet nature doesn't care. So when do we get out of the human race, tune into being a being that cares? If we take the word race and we change the letters up, it spells care. So how can we care for the human being? So you were given a flower when you came in, and the reason it was cut off was so that you would recognize that when you came onto this planet, we were cut off from our source, and then we were cut off from the umbilical cord, and we were asked to be here. And we weren't asked to rip these petals off and peel the onion. We were asked to blossom from the inside out, to nurture this. So when you hold it in your hands, know that you are holding that sacredness of who you are, of who I am, each of us. So thank you very much. You're a beautiful group, and you are beautiful.